he wouldn't shoot me, but teasing time, we prevail, let's play fool. We'll go around the table, we're all 18 and able, 'cause you got a 20 and I got a house key and someone be.
One might think you can get no more evil than the satanic occult brutality of bands like Behemoth, Watain, or even the sludge black metal of Goatwhore. Well, what if I told you that you could be just as satanic and wicked with a female vocalist with a beehive hairdo, a male guitarist playing 50s-inspired guitar-driven music, backed by a band that is pretty much the house band for Satan, Sockhop. Twin Temple is a Los Angeles-based band that revolves around the core members of husband and wife duo Alexandra and Zach James. And I am honored and intrigued to have both Alexandra and Zach on Talkin the Talk with the Great Southern Brain Fart. So, kids, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Well, I tell you, it's so funny. It's like I was literally asked to describe your music to someone, and that was exactly how I described it. Was I said, it's pretty much the band you would hear if Satan had a sockhop, you know. I mean, like it's, you know, there's something so great about, you know, my best friend and I from North Carolina, well, we attended both shows. We did the Asheville show and the Atlanta show. There's something really cool about, you know, a band that kind of takes you out of that normal element that you're accustomed to seeing. And I guess with that being said, like, were you surprised by the response that you guys were getting from the shows?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, this band started really, like, without a plan for it getting big at all. Like, Zach and I have been playing in bands for like, ever, and honestly, none of them were really, like, doing that well. We were kind of just scraping by, and the last group we were in, we had this big, like, management deal and, like, producer who sold millions of records, blah, 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 who wanted to work with us, and so we were, like, trying to figure out what we wanted to do. And as we started, like, sitting down and really writing and figuring out what we wanted the band to be, we were just like, you know what? None of this is really worth it if it doesn't bring you joy. Like, we've been doing this for so long, and, like, let's just do whatever the fuck we want, you know?
Right.
So we ended up walking away from all of those deals because everyone would not touch it with a 10-foot pole. And, like, they're like, well, I'm like a diamond platinum nominated producer who have, like, made some of the best selling records, like, in the world. And, like, no one will ever want this. And we're like, you know what? That's totally okay. Like, we'll just keep on with our side jobs, and at least, like, it'll be something weird that we like. And, like, when we were making our first record, we were just like, well, obviously we have to make 666 of them. Like, who knows if they'll ever sell? You know what I mean? Like, to be honest, we have, like, crates of records from our old bands that are just, like, sitting there, and we're like, but it has to be that number. So we were completely shocked when, like, they sold out in a few months. We were like, what is going on? And we were, like, about to go on tour, and we literally had no records. And so when Rise Above hit us up, we were like, I don't know what's happening, but yeah, we're going to go on tour and we have no records left. Like, this is crazy. We fully planned for this band to just be just something for us to do that made us happy. That was so weird. And we had no clue if anyone would like it at all. But, like, we truly love, like, classic 50s and 60s rock and roll. And we've been students of the occult, and we practice magic, and we've been doing that nearly our whole lives. And it was like, well, we should just put everything that we really love, like, into our art, because it's like, well, now we have an excuse to buy excessive amounts of, like, Philly's Records 7 inches or that human skull we've been eyeing. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, we can use it for our art. Like, fucking whatever. So
it's like homework. You know, it's like, oh,
yeah,
we got to buy these records because, you know, we have to study.
Right. And it's like our house is filled to the brim with, like, oddities and human skulls, magical tools, and a bunch of 50s and 60s rock and roll records. And we're sitting in our living room going, you know what? It's about time we just kind of, put everything we like in a blender and do this. So long story short, to answer your question, yes, we were really surprised.
Because it's really funny, because it's very similar. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but there's a Finnish occult band called Jess and the Ancient Ones, who are just fantastic, and they're good friends of mine. But they are also kind of very similar in the sense that while they don't play the 50s stuff, they play this kind of almost like 70s, 60s inspired, sometimes surf guitar, sometimes just almost kind of, I mean, it definitely doesn't sound like the occult rock of old, but it's like they have their message with with music that doesn't necessarily coincide with that kind of message, if that makes sense, and so
right.
Yeah, and so when they went on tour opening for King Diamond, they were like handpicked by King Diamond to do his tour a few years ago, and the look on people's faces when they came out on stage and started playing, people were just like, what the fuck are you? Like, because I think people were expecting like thrashy, heavy, Goatwhore, whatever, stuff like that, and then here's this like 70s inspired female they're basically like psych rock,
Right.
And it was so funny to watch the reactions, and then like 2 songs into the set, everyone's like, okay, yeah, I dig this, okay. It's like, but I think that's such a cool thing that what you guys did is that it's something that, like I said, like similar to them, was that you didn't go the normal predictable route of going, we have to be heavy and we have to be black and we have to have corpse paint and da 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 da, and which, to be honest, like, it's so funny. It's like somebody told me after watching you guys, they were like, at first I thought they looked kind of silly, and I said, yeah, but I said, to be honest, I said, I think they made the metal bands actually look dumber. I mean, because you guys looked so great and like had this great music, and then but it was almost like, if you have a message to get across, if you're not articulate and I can't understand the lyrics, then what is the point of you trying to convey a message, especially if it's a spiritual thing, whether it's like Satanism or left hand path type stuff. So if I don't understand what you're saying, I'm not getting your message. So to listen to you guys and actually hear the lyrics, I'm like, oh, that's a totally different experience,
Right. Totally.
I mean, so, and one of the things I also love, too, is reading the back of the album about how it said that you don't drink the blood of virgins or sacrifice babies, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. But so, from a spiritual point, what is a day in the life of the leaders of Twin Temple? And, like, how often do you practice your rituals?
Well, I mean, the rituals that you're seeing on stage are not actual rituals that we perform at home. Right. So they're kind of a pastiche of various traditions that we've adapted for our stage show. We're paying homage to them, though a lot of the rituals that we do, the longer ones, if we have like a longer set, we'll do like an initiation or an invocation. Those do end up having like actual magical results. But for example, like our opening ritual, it's kind of a combination of like the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram,
right?
Along with like some Crowleyan like symbolism, and like our outro ritual, it's got some like Alexandrian kind of elements of the Great Rite with the dagger and the chalice, or the athame, although we use an inverted cross, and stuff like that. So I mean, we definitely don't practice those rituals per se at home, though we do lots of other magical practices, like daily the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, which is a basic ritual that's in any ceremonial magician's tool belt. It's just great for before rituals or just every day. A lot of ceremonial magicians you talk to have been doing this for like 20 years. And it's a good one to have. And then
we see just everyday life as a magical practice, I mean, creating the world and the reality you want to see every day and every moment. So really it never stops, it just depends if it's ritualized or not.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously practice like sex magic and sigil magic. That's in regular rotation. And I mean, yeah, like Zach said, I think that just creating and doing your will is a form of lesser magic, which doesn't mean it's less important, but just a form of magic that you do living each day on the earth, No,
that makes total sense because, and I want to go deeper into that, but I want to start at the beginning with you guys. So, like, at what point were each of you individually drawn to the occult, and what was it that appealed to you about it rather than, say, that kind of, what we like to call cradle Christianity, if you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like when I was a little kid, honestly, I remember being like really small and like throwing leaves and shit in like a bowl and like mixing it around and like just being drawn to like I'd read like vampire stories and ghost stories, and there was like at the library I went to, I discovered like a very small section with like some witchcraft books, and I'd just always been drawn to it as a little kid. I mean, it definitely was more like, it wasn't satanic at the time, but it was what I could get my hands on. It was more like Wicca and like Gardnerian stuff.
Right.
And obviously like I love Lord of the Rings, and that had a lot of like actual like, magical symbolism in there, like runes and stuff. So that's kind of like, it was like magic light, that's where I got my start. And then over time I kind of like discovered, Satanism and more left-hand path stuff, and I was like, oh my god, this is exactly how I feel. This is like what I was looking for, like a word for who I am, basically. So that's kind of how I got into it. And obviously, I mean, like if you're into rock and roll and you start digging into like bands that you love and you see like Crowley on the cover of like Sgt. Pepper's, you're just like, what is this? This is tight. Like what are all these musicians drawing from, So you just start digging deeper, and I don't know, that's kind of how I got into it.
Yeah, it was similar for me. I mean, always kind of felt just outside of normal culture and just like what normal people wanted to do, and always drawn to the, darker symbols, and, symbols in general have always really spoke to me. So just kind of, I guess, found it through symbols really. And then, you start to read, and again, in a similar way, you just start to get a new vocabulary, and you go, oh, wow, there's a word for how I feel, and there's other people who feel this way. And we both kind of feel you're born, like a Satanist, or you're kind of born on the left-hand path. If you're going to be that way, it's just like a core set of values you have just kind of from day one.
Yeah, see, I totally agree because, I definitely don't consider myself a Satanist because I'm atheist, but I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school, but for as long as I could remember, I constantly questioned my religion, and so that's why I love that you said that you're kind of born into it, because even for, I think starting like around 5th or 6th grade, when you're starting to come into your own as, you're growing up, and you're starting to get to that point where you're questioning things. And I found myself questioning the church and its fundamental values, and, why my religion teacher would say, oh, if you're gay, you're going to go to hell. But then I'd say, but then I'd say, hey, my uncle's gay and he goes to church every Sunday. He's one of the best people I know. And then they say, oh, well, God makes exceptions. And I'd go, and I'd kind of give him like the squint blank face, where you're like, huh? Okay. Yeah.
Pretty convenient.
Yeah. And so I think it was at that point for me where I just kind of said, there's got to be something there, and then I kind of just denounced Christianity, like around 10th grade or so. And then I didn't know that there was a thing, and so I kind of found myself seeking. But then when I discovered Left Hand Path, believe it or not, even just a few years ago, I was like, oh my God, this is exactly where I'm at. And there's something kind of beautiful about finding an identity for what it is that you have a fundamental belief in,
Yeah.
Right. I was going to say, like, you say you're not a Satanist, but then, like, everything you're talking about is pretty, like, a lot of Satanists will say. Like, for example, questioning, like, the status quo is, like, really inherent to the satanic philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of Satanists are atheistic. Like, theistic Satanism is a kind of relatively small subset of Satanism. Like, most Satanists are atheists. So, like, we don't worship Satan as an actual deity. We use it as a symbol, Now,
that's interesting because I've never really thought about that, because what you were talking about makes sense, because I read the Satanic Bible about 2 years ago, and I've read it twice. And it's one of the greatest self-help books of all time. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you read the Christian Bible, and basically it makes you feel horrible to be a human being, Like, it makes you just feel like everything you do is wrong. But then you read the Satanic Bible, and, they say things like, if someone smites you, you smite them back. And you do so without the fear of, some sort of, religious retaliation. And I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously it's not preaching violence. I mean, because smiting, I think, goes beyond what you would think, just being like, a physical thing. But, but yeah, I mean, because now that I think about it, that does make a lot of sense, because there were so many parts of that, of reading the Satanic Bible, that just clicked with me, where I said, God, that's exactly how I feel. But I don't believe in God. So if I don't believe in God, can I actually believe in Satan? And, because to believe in one is to believe in another. So atheistic, is that what you call it? Atheistic Satanism? Is that
Satanism pretty much by its nature is atheistic.
Okay.
Most Satanists are atheists. Like, most Satanists adopt Satan as a symbol of rebellion, of individualism, of rejecting the status quo. They understand that it's a fairy tale from Christian mythology, and they're basically championing this literary figure to represent their own ideals. So, like, none of the rituals we do are in service of another sky daddy or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like we reject, like, patriarchy in all forms, and that includes believing that there's any man or dad out there with a beard or red horns or otherwise that holds power over ourselves. Like, we place ultimate trust and ultimately in ourselves, basically. Like, we believe that us, the individual, is responsible for our greatest failures and our greatest successes. Like, Satan didn't give us, powers. Like, we rehearsed and we studied and we took lessons and we worked. You know what I mean? Like, So at its core, I mean, there's no gods really in Satanism apart from the self. That is the ultimate. If you deify anything, it's your own individual self. And the other beautiful thing about Satanism is, like, you can take what you want from any tradition and make it a part of your practice. So if there's part of LaVeyan Satanism, for example, from the Satanic Bible that you like, take it. If you don't like it, don't use it. Like, use experiential knowledge and kind of trial and error to design your own. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, as individual as it can be. It's all about just the individual practicing.
So there's no, like, people are like, well, how do I, like, become a Satanist? And it's like, how do you become yourself? You know what I mean? Like, just be yourself. I think that's, like, what it comes down to ultimately. So if that means you believe in Satan as a real person out there, I mean, you can do that too if you really want to. you know?
No, and that's so fun. That it's great to hear that though, because I totally understand which is so funny because no disrespect to but I interviewed Eric Danielson from Watain, which is like the Swedish black metal.
Yeah.
And he was like, the world that you know is hollow. Da, 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 you know what I mean? And like just very like, and I'm speaking to you guys, and you guys are all like excited and happy to talk. You know what I mean? And like, do you know what I mean? It's almost more appealing hearing it from you guys because it does kind of show that there's a level of positivity within Satanism, that it's not just burning roadkill on upside down crosses on stage. You know what I mean?
No,
that's fun too, and there's possibility in being like the world is fucking hollow because in many ways it is.
Oh,
and
right,
it's not all sunshine and rainbows. You know what I mean? It's about balance. It's about finding the middle pillar. Yeah. It's about having justice and severity. It's about having positives and negatives. It's about saying yes and no, and about finding your own way and your own boundaries and the things that make you feel good and comfortable or whatever. It
is also a very humanist belief or set of practices, so it is celebrating the human experience and being here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because each person, there's only one of those made ever for eternity in the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that's very precious because I think each person is a very, very individual set of ideals and beliefs, and what they can do on this earth is like limitless. So, it's like, I don't know, there's some kind of undercurrent in like satanic ideology. And I think it comes from LaVeyan Satanism because he was drawing from a lot of the social Darwinist texts like Might is Right that kind of got co-opted into like Nazi thinking, which is like cream rises, like smash the weak, like we're the elite. And we get a lot of kickback a lot of times from other Satanists who are like, this is weak Satanism because you think fundamentally people are equal. And it's like, well, yeah, there's only one of a kind of each person.
Right.
Why would I think they deserve to be smashed? Like, that just seems really like cocky and arrogant. And like, I think that a lot of people underestimate other people's potential, So.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that actually is a great segue into my next thought. Was one of the things I noticed, especially with Twin Temple, and especially in the live or even on the album, where you do the kind of invocation or whatever, that it very much comes across as not even just a generic kind of thing, but almost that Twin Temple is kind of its own little sect of the satanic church. Similar to like how you have LaVeyan Satanism and the Temple of Set and the Temple of Satan. Like, so would you kind of consider Twin Temple to be its own entity of sorts?
Well, we believe it's a living tradition. Satanism is definitely living and changing all the time and evolving.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I mean, the point, right, like we were saying earlier, is to cater to your own self as much as possible. And what you're seeing with Twin Temple is really just a reflection of exactly who we are and what we personally believe. So I would never like really want to be like, we're the head of like a new church or a movement or whatever, because it just seems like totally.
And there's a right way and a wrong way.
Right. And that's like kind of one of our magical mottos is like, nothing is true, everything is permitted. So like people need to find their own path. And that's one of the liberating things, is realizing that right and wrong are, for the most part, or if not entirely, human constructs.
Mm-hmm.
Morality, it changes around the world depending on who you're asking and where you are. So you could never prescribe, 10 commandments or whatever to another person, because it's all relative. I mean,
right.
Kind of like everything's subjective and objective at the same time. It's like a paradox.
It's so funny because a buddy of mine and I, who we tend to talk about this kind of stuff together. We were talking about the 10 Commandments, and we were kind of laughing a little bit about it. And he said, if you showed this to someone who did not know what it is, it's like, with the exception of the God parts, basically it's just saying, don't be a shitty person. Do you know what I mean? Which is like, he said the 10 Commandments is like one of the least religious things about, Christianity, because it's almost like you said, it's just fundamentals. It's like, just don't be a shitty person. Like, that's not a hard thing to do, but you can do that without the stigma of going, oh, I better not be a shitty person or I'm going to go to hell, because right. I don't know if there is a hell and you guys are going, like, it sounds pretty fun. So I think I'd rather go there.
All the best people are in hell.
I tell you what, I'd rather hang out with you guys and Striper. So, that's, I mean, fuck it, but,
it's kind of a good record though.
The funny thing is like, I was a Striper fan. Dude, I know people who are in like black metal bands who are like, God damn, dude, To Hell with the Devil's a fucking great record, and the riffs,
I kind of have one Striper record. What's that yellow and black one? Like,
it's called?
I don't know.
It's in the record collection.
Yeah, I haven't busted down a long time, but I mean, for a moment it was kind of a novelty. Like, this is funny.
So kind of speaking of the musical aspect of you guys, like before you guys met each other and before there was a Twin Temple, were either of you or both of you involved in occult bands, or like what kind of musical endeavors were you guys doing? And you also talked about a previous band. Like, what was that band about?
Yeah,
primarily punk rock bands, just like assorted punk.
Mm-hmm. I was in like a bunch of punk bands. I was kind of in like a proto blues, like, I don't know, pentagram almost like influence band. Like, I was in a bunch of different bands. Yeah, like a punk band, and then I kind of did a 180. Like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. I was just like, man, I want to like do something different, and I was just listening to a lot of like old school soul records and Otis Redding and stuff like that. I was like, man, I'm just gonna fucking do a soul band for a while, and I really love David Bowie, so I'm just gonna like mix it with glam imagery. So I did that for a while, and actually yours was like vaguely like All Seeing Eyes had some like voodoo in like elements kind of, and like use the like All Seeing Eye iconography and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was like pretty minor, the like mix of the occult. Again, we hadn't really incorporated it into our art. It was separate, it was like a personal thing. Because again, it's a personal practice, so it's like kind of a double-edged sword to put it out there for people to, I guess, be influenced by, because it's not really the point. We're not trying to push people in any direction. So it was always a personal, individual practice. But for this band, it was kind of the first that we really put it out there. But yeah, we were kind of experimenting with different symbolism and different musical pairings, but I think this is definitely the most successful yet.
Yeah. I think because it's like the most authentic, you know what I mean? It's like in the past, like one of my first bands was like, well, I love the Runaways and the Dead Boys and I love Turbo Negro, so this band will sound exactly like that. And
right.
Like, you know what I mean? It was just like, well, I'm just gonna be that band, kind of dress like that band, and kind of echo what bands already did, and kind of write songs like those other bands with topics like those other bands. And I mean, it was just pretty like generic.
It's so funny how like, because that's very similar to me. Like when I was younger, like in my late teens, early 20s, like I was in punk bands. I was even in a metal band who we were like, we want to be a cross between the Ramones and Iron Maiden, which basically means we were like, we wanted to be Iron Maiden that couldn't really play very good, and you know what I mean. So like and like we tried to have this identity, and then all of a sudden, like in my 20s, I discovered my dad's like folk collection, and like Buffy St. Marie and the whole Laurel Canyon thing, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and then I got into folk rock, and like now here I am, 45. I'm playing in a roots rock trio, and it's the most successful band I've ever had. You know, and it's like I'm playing the music that I grew up listening to, but that I pretty much spent my life pushing away. You know,
Right.
and so it's like the authenticity of it really comes out because it's in your roots.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you really love a thing and like you're very passionate about it, like other people can't help but get excited about it too, because they recognize, the truth in what you're doing.
Well, because like again, like you said, like, you know, when you channel that thing that you feel is, this is what I'm really about musically, you know, and artistically, that it's going to be much more obvious and even much more attainable and easier to grasp by an audience than someone who looks up at you and goes, people can spot a fake. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
And that's one of the things I thought you guys did so successfully live, was that you definitely came off as real deal, you know? And like I said, my friend and I walked away, we were blown away, you know? And I have to say, you know, the album, Satanic, Signature Sound, Satanic Doo-Wop, it's hands down one of my favorite albums of the year. And I have to say, no disrespect to Zach or my wife, but seriously, Alexandria, after hearing Lucifer, My Love, I never wanted to be Lucifer more in my entire life. Like, seriously. Like, and then throw I'm Wicked on top of that. Like, whoever knew that Satanism could be sexy? You know what I mean? Like, but was that kind of part of the Twin Temple message, was to kind of put this other spin on Satanism and say, you know what? There can be this kind of, you know, it doesn't have to be loud and heavy and banging your head. It could be very sexy and kind of a sensual, you know, in that kind of 50s sound.
Right. I mean, honestly, we weren't trying to make any points at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, we were just trying to make the truest reflection of who we are and what we believe, you know, and whatever people took from that is cool, because I mean, we love Behemoth. You know, we saw them recently. We're totally blown away and think they're an incredible band. And
Right.
if that's who you are and that's how you express yourself, that's amazing. Like, you know, so however people want to do things, I mean, that's up to them. Like,
Yeah, we're just capturing who we are and then, you know, certain feelings, and sexuality is a part of the human experience. So we're definitely going to, you know, capture that, and it's going to be filtered through our art.
and I mean, I say, like, we weren't trying to, like, make a point, but, like, I suppose that as, like, a woman who's grown up in America with my own lived experience, and as, like, a woman of color, you know,
Right.
coming from, like, a mixed background or whatever, like, I have a specific outlook on the world, and I have certain things that I personally want to express. And I mean, with something like Wicked, I think the point was more to question why women's sexuality is demonized. And in
Right.
a lot of ways, women's sexuality, I think, is correlated with, the devil or whatever. I think the fear of Satan and the devil for a lot of people is really just fear of women's sexuality. And I mean, with something like that, with saying too that we're Satanists, it's about owning that identity, about saying, yeah, I am a devil worshiper, I am evil, I am
Oh, I heard a baby in the background.
Sorry, dog. That's Ziggy Stardust.
Oh, I love it.
He's a little pug. He looks like an alien, so we named him Ziggy because we have theories that he's like in a rock and roll band at night when we're asleep.
That's
But,
my drummer's girlfriend's dog's name, by the way, because she has a lightning bolt on her forehead.
Oh, how cute!
I know, it's so funny. It's like Ziggy.
Yeah, but yeah. Anyways, I think that's like the point I was trying to make lyrically with a song like that, is just demolishing the patriarchal fairy tale of Adam and Eve and woman being, the original wicked woman or the original cause of man's downfall, basically, and there's just a lot of I don't know, patriarchal stories that we tell ourselves about who we are and as women and how that relates to our sexuality. And that was just something that I was like both trying to destroy and then reappropriate as a means of self-empowerment, to just say, yeah, I'm wicked, I'm the devil, like, you know what I mean? Like all of those things that you call me, yeah, I am. And that's a big part too about Satanism, is adopting the mantle of that which is feared and owning, the epithets that are thrown your way.
Yeah, because one of the things I also love about the dynamics between you two, especially on stage, was that, Zach, you really, like, the two of you actually perform as equals, like to the front. And yet you kind of play the more kind of brooding, quiet side of the duo. But it almost seems like, I know that, well, obviously it's not going to sound crazy to you guys. It might sound crazy to some of my listeners, but like I almost feel you exude this kind of magic and this kind of energy that kind of fuels Alexandria. I mean, would you kind of agree with that, or?
I think we're just kind of both being ourselves up there, and our personalities, during a ritual and how they reflect in the roles. So I don't really know. I mean,
it is pretty perceptive though, because we always joke that Zach's like the quiet Beatle, because like he's extremely introverted, and like, yeah, I think you picked up on like a dynamic of us, like he's like, you do the talking, like I'll do the observing, like you know what I mean? Like a friend of ours says that I'm the gas and Zach's the brakes, which I think is
that's how my wife and I are. Like I'm the mouth of the South, and my wife is more like the shh. Can I have like 30 quiet minutes before we talk? Because I just got home from work. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're both like rather introverted for the most part. Like when we're at home, we're kind of like quiet and like into our own weird stuff. And
same here. Yeah.
I think like, we go very inwards, but yeah, I mean, usually I'm the one doing all the talking.
But it's so funny because there still is a balance, even though it sounds like, even though it comes across that way, because seriously, like watching Zach on stage, I would focus on you, and I would be like, even though it's almost like you would think you would be the focal point, it's like I would be watching you, but then all of a sudden I'd look over at Zach and I'd go, wow, I feel slightly intimidated right now, because he's just got this like look on him with just like seriousness. And then he kind of looks out into the crowd, and it's like at one point in Asheville, you made eye contact with me, and I was like, oh man. And I kind of put my head down for a second, because I was like, I don't want him to read into anything, Although my proudest moment in Asheville was at the end when you when you drank the blood. I actually got a drop of blood on my hand, and I looked over at my friend and I said, "So does this mean I'm one of them now?" And so I actually took a picture of it. So I'll have to text it to you guys so you can see it. It's like this single drop of blood on my hand, and I'm like, wow, okay. Okay,
one of us.
One of you.
You are a devil worshiper now.
It's like, oh my God, I can feel the Christianity just burning out of me, But to kind of go back to what you said about the sexuality thing, like what I love so much about that was that, especially with other death metal bands or black metal bands, occult bands, satanic bands, is that even in their messages, when you go back and you read their lyrics, they're very angry, anti-establishment, anti-Christian, which again, like you said, is an aspect of Satanism. But even they seem to kind of stray away from the sexuality aspect of it. And maybe it's because, I don't know, maybe, black metal and, occult metal isn't necessarily, sexy or whatever. I don't know. Because if you are singing about sex, I can't understand it. But it seemed like Twin Temple kind of worked, like took that aspect and said, you know what? This is just going to be another stigma that we're going to break that maybe other bands aren't breaking. And I thought that was a great thing.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, as a woman, that's something, the demonization of my sexuality, everything from just like being called a slut or, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff is like something that I'm just sick of and that's annoying. And especially as a woman having played like heavy, like rock my whole life, it's like something that gets real old. And like our lyrics, usually I just write from a place of like whatever's on my mind, whatever I want to get off my chest. And that's something that I think about and that it affects me in my daily life. And I mean, I'm a proud practitioner of sex magic, and that's something that I don't feel like I need to be ashamed of. And, for a long time, it's kind of like I'd like hide my sex magic books and stuff like that and not really want to tell anybody about that. But I think, especially with this band, it's just not about eliminating fear, like burning down anything that prevents me from being who I truly am. And,
right.
Since I've come out and been like, yeah, I practice sex magic or whatever, like, hasn't really changed, my life drastically. Like, sometimes you think, well, when I come out and admit this aspect of who I am to other people, they're going to, like, who knows? You know what I mean? Like,
we do get a lot of shit for the Satanism.
We do get a lot of shit for the Satanism. That is true.
Which is great, because I heard somebody one time say, I think it might have even been Tony Dolan from Venom Inc. who said, satanic press is good press.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that whole episode for 1 second. Yeah, I don't know if like we told you this, but Alex Jones picked up like the story on us somehow and like was saying how we're like this group that gave ourselves over to pure evil, which is hilarious.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And then Christian hate groups like picked up the story as well. And man, they put out, there's one like call for an upload or something, or like, I don't remember what it was called, but they have like millions of YouTube subscribers. And like, it was a super long segment on how we like source our real human baby blood, and that we say it's fake on stage, but it's actually not. It's actually real babies, and like we're murderers, and like all of this stuff that was actually really heavy and like kind of made us ill to listen to. And so we got like, what's it called? Like doxed or whatever. Like our inboxes were flooded, our social media like was flooded, and like we got a handful of like legitimate death threats and stuff. And like, it took us like days to remove all of the hate messages and hate mail and like everything. And it kind of freaked us out. Like, we're kind of like paranoid for a minute there.
Which is so funny, because it's like, I deal with this a lot myself, because I'm I'm a very outspoken liberal and, very, pro-choice, pro-feminism, volunteer for Planned Parenthood type things. So I get a lot of hate mail on the Brain Fart Facebook page, calling me a snowflake cuck and all this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, what Christian words you have. You know what I mean? Like, and it just pisses them off even more. But like you said, there are points where even my wife, when I'm going out to a show or something to cover, she goes, do I need to worry about you tonight? Like, are they going to like lynch you after? And I'm like, no, I think I'm okay.
Well, one of the best pieces of advice I got is, if someone's going to kill you, they ain't going to tell you about it first.
Oh, that's so true. That's so, yeah, because I always feel like it's the ones that actually say shit like that like if you came face to face with them, they'd be like, how you doing?
Yeah, exactly. The internet, it's unfortunate. I mean, it's amazing, but it also has allowed us to just be assholes to each other. You know what I mean? When you don't have to look somebody in the eye, it's possible to say a lot of things.
Oh, exactly. And I have to tell you, well, first off, thank you guys so much for being such great guests. I mean, hell, you could have been hosts, actually, because y'all were just so fantastic. But I have to tell you, yesterday I was running some errands with my mother, and I was playing some music, and I decided to play her Lucifer, My Love. And, you know, she's a Catholic woman. I've never seen someone so conflicted in my entire life. Like, to me, that was more unexpected and shocking than, like, any Watain show you could go to. Because my mom was like, what a beautiful voice she has. And she goes, oh my God, I love this music. Wait a minute, did she just say Lucifer, My Love? And I was like, yeah, they're saying, and I was like, do you want me to change it? She goes, no, I'd like to listen to it. And that part when you said you're a much better kisser than Jesus, my mom was like, okay, yeah, you got to turn this off. But I had to share that with you because I just thought it was like one of the greatest moments ever.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Classic.
Well, so just a couple more things to ask you guys before we close out. I guess first off, you know, we talked about like a lot of the literature and, you know, like the sex magic books and everything. For someone like me who has really only ventured into like, say, like the Satanic Bible and read some, some of the, Castaneda books, what kind of literature would you recommend to someone like me who is actually interested in things like, sex magic and left-hand path, whatnot?
Well, Frater UD has a really great book on sex magic and in general magic, really.
Yeah, he's got some good writing on ceremonial magic, and if you're looking for actual, like, practical magic,
like if you want to get down and try some sex magic, he's got some great writing.
Frater UD. And then for, like, left-hand path overview, there's a book called Lords of the Left-Hand Path by Stephen Flowers, and he just kind of goes into all groups throughout history who have kind of, used the satanic symbolism or Luciferian symbolism or assorted left-hand paths. Practice, and it's got a little thing on Crowley, LaVey, Madame Blavatsky, and just a ton of people in that book. That's a cool, just kind of
first
overview, just to really get a grasp on the like roots and the like heart of left-hand path.
It's kind of it's kind of like a 101 book.
Yeah, it's kind of basic, but it at least kind of just shows you the string that unites all these different people throughout, hundreds of years.
Yeah, and then if there's something that kind of like piques your interest, you can dig deeper into that like sect of it or whatever. But I mean, it really depends what you're like trying to do, like
those are good places to start.
Yeah, those are good places to start.
I think I'm really more, like I said earlier, is that I'm definitely more of a seeker, if that makes sense. Like I love to just obtain knowledge about things. I don't know that I'm quite interested. I mean, of course I never say never, but as far as practicing or whatever, but but kind of like you said earlier, both of you guys, to echo back to the beginning, was just because I feel like I'm kind of finding my identity with my fundamental beliefs, that it would be nice to be able to read something besides the Satanic Bible, which I did, which did click with me, that would kind of make me go, oh, okay, so that's where I am.
Yeah,
right.
I would read Lords of the Left-Hand Path, or at least start to look at it. It's kind of a dense book. It covers a lot of different groups, but it's a really great overview.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Well, so, and I guess the last question is, look, I'm just gonna be honest. I didn't fucking get enough of Twin Temple on this tour. That sucked, man. Like, I could have done easily another 25 minutes. So, are there actually, to be honest, I'm a man who speaks my words, and I know you guys were, but I would have said fuck Uncle Acid and just have it be you and Graveyard, and then I had you play for 45 minutes. But
that burns! I love Uncle Acid so much.
I know a lot of people do. I'm a huge Graveyard fan, and they're friends of mine, but they're one of my. But I would have rather have more you guys. So, with that being said, are you guys going to tour again? Do we have any more tour plans, like, to get you guys out to Atlanta again or something? Or
yes,
definitely. It's been kind of crazy, but we're planning out the next year or so. We just keep getting a bunch of tour offers. So the soonest is we're doing a little headlining string. It's not going to be in Atlanta, but it's SF, LA, and Portland. So
I saw that. Yeah.
For that. Yeah. We're going to be at Psycho, Las Vegas in August.
Oh gosh, yeah. Next year, that's going to be my personal vacation. I'm telling you.
Yeah, right.
Totally. And then it's not announced, but we've got a few more like extensive tours.
Which I believe we go through Atlanta.
I believe we're going to hit. It's like the one we're looking at right now is like 44 shows or something. So
wow.
Yeah, so we should be hitting a lot more cities. And then I think we're also talking about, like, I mean, way in the future, like spring.
Yeah, I think spring will be the next headline that gets us out of the, like, immediate area. But the other ones will be, like, support or opening. So it'll be a shorter set again, but it'll be enough to get you through.
we're trying to work up to... like just doing more headlining sets. And
so we can do full, we do the longer rituals for the headlining sets.
Right. Yeah. Well, good. Well, now I'm not so afraid to look you in the eyes, Zach, and maybe even give you a wink and a smile. So,
He's got a good wink,
Oh, well, it took me a while to get it down, but
you got to have a good wink.
So actually, I learned it from my dog. So. But anyway, well, look, you two, thank y'all so much for being guests on my show. I really appreciate it, and this was by far one of my favorite ones. Y'all are just fantastic, and you're an incredible band, and I love your music. I can't wait to see more of you and to hear what lies ahead for us with Twin Temple.
Thank you so much.
It really means a lot to us, like, your support and just asking great questions. And yeah, we really appreciate it. It's been a great conversation. So thank you.
Well, I take that as a huge compliment. So thank you so much, because y'all could have easily hung up like 20 minutes ago. So, but I'm glad you didn't. So, well, look, best of luck with everything, and hails to you guys.
Yeah, hail Satan.
All right, thank y'all so much.
Bye.
I love breathing under the full moon. I draw power from my womb. I don't want babies. I make love on my enemies to take a good look, 'cause I write the book. I'm wicked, like magic. I'm evil, satanic. I'm the devil, and I got you under my spell. I'm a woman, and I'm wicked.